Welcome to Players Only. It's an 8-game night. Yes, it's a new night, but it's the same cast and crew and the same professionals around us helping us look good, so don't worry. Hopefully we'll be consistent with you. I'm Chris Webber, Isaiah Thomas, and our man Kevin McHale at the end. Guys, we have a really good game tonight. We got the Timberwolves, and they're a little bit under my expectation, 19-21. I thought they'd be probably 5-6 games above 500 at this time, but they're going up against the number 2 team, and maybe the biggest surprise for me, one of the biggest surprises in the NBA, the OKC Thunder, especially on the defensive end. I think Coach Donovan has done a great job, but we can't ignore the news of Coach Thibodeau being fired in the regular season. Overall, he's 352 and 246, so he has an above-winning record overall in the NBA. But there in the Wolves, he was under that 500 mark. Let's start with you, Kev. When you understanding what's going on with the Timberwolves, did you kind of see this move of the firing of Coach Thibodeau coming, or was it a surprise, or how did it get you?
I think it all happened at training camp with the whole thing with Butler. That was the start of it. You know, Butler came out right after the season, which I didn't know he knew about, and said, I want to be gone. Like a week after, Butler doesn't fly back with the team after they lose in the playoffs, which is usually a sign of something bad's happening. Because, you know, everybody rides together that last, and you start talking about next year and getting better. He doesn't even come with them. Tells Tibbs he wants to go. And none of that gets out. I'm not even sure how many people inside the organization knew that. Doesn't show up for training camp. Comes in late in training camp, has a practice where he curses out everybody and kind of just, starts going off. And I think that was it right there. I just think at that time, I know if I'm on the team and a guy does that, if I don't say something, I'm surely hoping the coach says, hey, man, come on. This is practice. These are your teammates. We're stopping this thing, man. This is about us together. And I just thought that was it. Now, it took a little longer. It's boiling up, Chris, when you get dropped after you win a game by 22 points. And they won 2 games in a row. So this was going to happen one way or the other. But I think it happened again, like I said last year with Butler at the end of the playoffs, going all the way up through training camp.
Yeah, so much has been made, and watching TV this week and hearing undertones of journalism, it seems that players have been accused to not say what's on their mind about teammates, and it's in other sports, football mostly. But here, listening to you guys, you've been pretty critical, I think, of good friends, of guys that have been in the same position of you, because it's not personal when we're talking about sports. And both of you guys have been coaches. Both of you, I'm not sure, have been relieved of duties or quit those duties. And, how could he have stopped the bleeding, Zeke? And where do you go from, right now? Right now, you have young Saunders, the coach of the son of Coach Flip Saunders, 32 years old. First of all, I know he's a great basketball mind as much as he's been around the game, but being so young, taking this young team in a new direction, how do you sort through all this if you're in the midst of this storm right now as management for Minnesota Timberwolves?
The first thing, management, as Kevin said, they made a bet on Butler. Tibbs and Butler made a bet together and lost, right? So that relationship got fractured. Once that relationship was fractured, now there's an organizational fracture. And when you have an organizational fracture with management, players, coaches, now somebody's got to bring everybody back together. And normally that's going to be the coach. So, Saunders has a big job ahead of him these next 2 to 3 days, because right now, these next 2 to 3 days, so much stuff could spin out of control, and it can get out of control quickly.
So, Zeke, I hate to cut you off, but both guys, first of all, I love the fact that his son has a role, and I know, again, he's a basketball mind. But with the lack of experience with the young team, I'm wondering how that plays, and I'll give you a better example. To me, this was the first time maybe Coach Popovich was in a situation where he had to recruit one of his own free agents. And when you understand maybe people don't look at us like I thought they do on the inside or how they should, maybe you end up losing in that situation. What does he go on right now to say, this is how you hold it together? Is he calling your mentors? Is he talking to the players? If you're him, what do you do with that lack of experience?
He's got to lean on the players. Now it really becomes Towns and Wiggins who really have to steady the ship and bring everybody together, because Chris and Kevin, you both know this, right? The product and the performance out on the floor, that's what's going to be judged.
Yeah.
The X's and O's is not going to be judged as much as the product out on the floor in terms of how you play, how you execute, how hard you play, so forth and so on. And that really comes down to the players. So the only people who are really going to get them out of this situation are the 12 guys that got on the uniform.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
and when the 12 guys who got on the uniform, Towns and Cat, they got to lead it.
And, you know, you look at the guys. Ryan Saunders is 32 years old. He looks at those guys and say, look, I'm one of you. I mean, let's do this together.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the biggest thing you got to do, because I've taken over in the middle of the season a couple times, you got to go from trying to put your stuff in. Because like I said, we were talking about the Zeke earlier.
Yeah.
Try to put a whole new offense in yesterday. See how it looks tonight.
Yeah.
You got to take Tibbs' stuff, if you're Ryan Saunders, and say, okay, I like these 3 sets. I don't like these sets. And you guys take Tibbs' stuff and use that tonight and slowly bring your stuff in. But I think also if Ryan is smart and is going to talk to you guys, I'm going to go to the top players if I'm him and saying, okay, what sets do you like? Cat, when you need a hoop, what do you want me to run from you? Wiggs, when you're not rolling, what gets you rolling? And then I tell you what, I'm running that stuff for my top players.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get my top players on board, fighting hard, and then they'll bring everybody with them. But it's tough. I guarantee you Ryan hasn't slept in 2 days since they told him as head coach. Yeah. His mind's spinning. The game's getting ready to start. He's got 700 things going through his brain. And I told you, Zeke, just hope it doesn't come down to the last 35 seconds in a tie game. Ryan will be like, oh, man, because, you know, you have so much stuff you have to do. But once you do it and you get comfortable with basketball, like I told you, I wanted to go for 2-for-1s late in the game. So, I mean, if there was 38 seconds to go, tie game, I said, guys, we're going to get a shot up in the next 4 or 5 seconds. I mean, we did that in the first quarter. We did that in the second quarter. Did it in the third quarter. We're going to do it in the fourth quarter. Let's get 2 for 1. And so you got to kind of get your style of coaching, put it in there. But I know right now, young guy, I've known him since he's just been a little boy, Ryan.
Yeah.
And, I know he's nervous as all get up right now.
I'll tell you what, he's earned this moment. I'm sure his father and his family made him earn this moment. And he has a guy that's very reliable. When you look at Karl Anthony Towns, he's averaging 30 points on 53% field goal in his last 6 games. So I can see that. And one thing you said, Kevin, I like, when you go to a player and you say, Isaiah, what play do you like for you? You're really giving them responsibility. Because you can't look at me and say, well, Coach, I'm not in my zone. I'm not in the place. I'm expecting you now to be successful every single time at this mark. And so it'll be fun to see how he and this group gets through this game.
So players only, I'm going to throw this out there, even though this is you know, our guy here. We don't want to lose you or anything. But, you know, your history with Minnesota, your history with the family, with the organization. You got Sam Mitchell sitting out there.
I asked him this today. Zeke walking in, I asked him the same. Talk to him.
I'm just
Sam
saying there's a lot of names floating around out there, and you two have experience. Not only do you and Sam have experience, y'all both have been, you know, great executives. Sam was coach of the year. You both know Minnesota. You both know the franchise, everything else. I'm just throwing it out there. I think y'all a good team going back to Minnesota, working with some of those young guys that y'all helped to mentor, so forth and so on.
I just got scared again. They had KG together, Speed, Cassell.
I mean, he's been
we had to try to beat those guys.
Yeah, so when you talk about experience and making it work and everything else, I mean, he and Sam Mitchell, to me, that's a good look in Minnesota.
I tell you what, Sam would be a great hire for them. I really do. I'm not sure.
You're not running for office.
No.
He's like, I'm not ready to announce.
Hey, Chris, you ain't even in this conversation.
I think he should.
This is just me and you talking about.
Towns could work with the big fella. He had black. You know he's tough. They say they're lacking toughness. Wiggins on that wing.
But you know, in Phoenix now, his blood.
You saw them come back from 3-1 that time against Houston. I mean, I'm sorry, against the Clippers.
But that was him.
That was his team. And the part guard that played. Yeah, he drafted Garnett.
Oh, okay.
And also made the area conducive to raise up a young guy like that.
Is he from Minnesota? Is McHale from Minnesota?
Yeah, he played. Did he play at Minnesota? Big Ten guy.
Oh, yeah, he won championships with the Celtics?
Did he? A couple. He said that 86 team was the greatest you'd ever seen.
And he's got experience?
Yeah.
He knows from.
Wait, we're not in the commercial right now.
One thing I know, he likes the sunshine of Scottsdale.
There you go. Oh, man. But, yeah, so we do have another team that's going to be playing OKC. We'll talk about them a little bit later. And I think most teams will be really surprised with the way that OKC is playing, especially on the defensive end. That's right. Your still leaders for this year in the NBA start with Westbrook at number 1, number 2, PG-13. We'll talk about him on the other side. Players only, baby.
And
Coaches
you know
only.
that.
Coaches only.
Sam Mitchell. Sound like a good fit to me.
Just bring the sunshine.
The big news around the NBA over the last 24 hours has been the firing of Wolves president and head coach Tom Thibodeau. The Wolves are under 500 and 2 games back of the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Interim head coach Ryan Saunders addressed the media earlier today.
Definitely didn't expect to be standing here. I'll first off say how much I respect Coach Tibbs and Coach Andy Greer as well. It's tough when you spend so much time with people, on the road or just in general, and then you see you're not going to see those people as much anymore. That's a tough thing. So I'm thankful for the opportunity, though, and moving forward, I'm looking forward to seeing progress on the court and helping grow this team.
Tuesday on NBA TV, it's players only, baby, as Dennis Scott would say. We've got a doubleheader starting with the Wolves and Thunder at 8 Eastern, followed by the Knicks and Warriors at 10:30. Your coverage starts right here at 7:30 with the Auto Trader pregame show. So to help me break down the first of that doubleheader, the czar, Mike Fratello, joins me to talk Timberwolves halfway through this adversity-laden season, we'll call it. What's a realistic expectation for this young team?
This was a team who was just starting to find its way, 5-3 in their last 8 games. One of their 2 young stars has been playing out of his mind lately, and that's Karl Anthony Towns. The last game, both young guys, Wiggins and Towns, go for 28 points apiece. When you look at their roster, it's kind of an interesting blend. You have 7 players with 5 years or less experience. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you have 4 players with 9 and 10 years of experience. But let's face it, obviously their future is Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins. They've played exactly the same number of home and away games. They have 21 home left, 21 away left, as they take this 19-21 record. And yeah, they're not in the playoffs as it was tonight, but they're only 2 games out of the 8th spot. So Ryan coming in, taking goal for Tibbs, he's got a tough assignment here because now you've got to get these guys to buy in. And without knowing how much involvement he's had with these young guys, I would think he's had a lot of time with them in development, that type of thing. They know he's a basketball guy. He's done their scouting and preparation for them for a couple of years now. I would think that they would give him a lot of respect. He's got Ed Pinckney, Malik Allen alongside of him to help him out, and that's their job, to help this young man out. He's got an interesting challenge in front of him.
Well, you mentioned if the playoffs were to start today, they would be on the outside looking in. But because of the parity in the Western Conference through the first 40 games this season, is a playoff push realistic?
I think it's realistic, but obviously the key is health, injuries. Can they go through the second part of the season without any seriously long stretches of key guys being out? Get Covington involved, get Saric involved with this team since the trade took place. If Towns keeps playing like he's playing, that's a huge plus for a young guy coming in when you got a guy who's averaging over 28 points a game for the last 8 games.
Well, you mentioned the split right down the middle with home games and away games, and the next 8 games actually look exactly like that as well. They're split at home and on the road, starting with tomorrow night's matchup at OKC, before they then return to Minnesota to host the Mavericks and the Pelicans this weekend, a couple of teams that are also vying for playoff position.
If I was a head coach stepping in, okay, an interim coach, I would have picked a little bit different opponent than Oklahoma City for my first game to break in.
Yeah.
But welcome to the NBA.
Yeah, surprise. Yeah. Welcome. All right, well, I'm going to head over to the other side of the court, and we're going to talk a little bit about, the flip side of this matchup, the Oklahoma City Thunder, with our Hall of Fame head coach, Kevin McHale. Coach, when you look at what's made the Thunder successful thus far this season, we talk, of course, a lot about the statistical performances that Russell Westbrook has put up in an MVP caliber season, but let's talk about Paul George and their defensive prowess.
Yeah, I like Paul George. Paul George is really playing well right now. He's at the level where everybody even defers to him. Even Russell Westbrook, when Paul gets going, they give him the ball and let him create shots for himself. And at late in games, they're giving the ball to Paul to finish out games for him. So I like him. But what I really like about OKC is their defense. There's a couple things that they do. They lead the league in deflections, so they're long and they get out in the passing lanes, and you're seeing right now Paul George knock down shots. And their ability to defend, though, is what got me excited. They get their hands on lots of balls, whether it be deflections, block shots, and it turns the points really quickly. They have Steven Adams in the middle that can really control the paint, and he's going to bump and bruise you as you see these guys get steals galore. And big Steven Adams holds down the paint. And then they can switch a lot of stuff. I like the teams that can switch. They not only switch, they switch to deny. So as picks come down, they get up and they deny the passes. That's why they have so many deflections. So I'm more excited about their defense this year than of anything else. I haven't really bought into OKC the last couple of years. They're just impossible for me to like. They play so well, then they play so bad at times. They're just up and down. But their defense right now has got me believing that they could really make a playoff run. You can beat people in this league with defense if you're dedicated and doing it. Now, I know it's an offensive league, but you can go out there and they have the type of athletes that can get out, deny, and play really good defense on the perimeter.
Well, you're exactly right. We've spent the last couple of seasons, and especially last season, talking about when the Thunder were going to find their way. It was a team that was inconsistent to have so much talent on its roster. Do you see anything apart from its defensive consistency as the reason why they could be contenders this season in the West?
Yeah, I think that they can bring in and play Schroeder alongside of Westbrook, and I think that just gives them a unique ability. Westbrook can come off picks, get off the ball. Schroeder can handle the ball. He can get his own offense, but he can also distribute. And I just think less is more. I think, Carmelo there, everybody was trying to figure out how to play with each other. Carmelo leaves that, opens up more opportunity for Paul George. And as I said when we started the segment, they believe in Paul George. They give him the ball late. They let him close games. Westbrook is deferring to him. And Russell Westbrook doesn't defer to many people, and he's deferring to him. And again, I just think that less is more for this team. But I believe in them, as I said earlier. I believe in them because of their defense. I like the way they D up.
Well, you just said it. Russ may not defer to many people, but he has become more of an offensive facilitator when you look at his numbers this season as opposed to the last couple. What has impressed you most about his play?
Well, he hasn't been shooting the ball well this year. But that's the thing I like, is you can control the game. I always said you're really not a basketball player if the only way you can control the game is by scoring. Then you know what you are? You're a scorer.
Right.
If you're a basketball player, you can control the game and score 10, 12 points. I mean, assist, rebound, defend, do all of these things. And, Westbrook's a basketball player. And that's why I really like the guy. So he's not shooting the ball well. He hasn't been in great rhythm. He started off with knee surgery, missing training camp and all that stuff. But I like the fact that he's kind of coming out, testing the water a little bit on some shots. And if he's not hitting it, he's just playing the game. There's many, many ways to win a basketball game. It's not all about, can I get 35 points? And Westbrook can affect the game defensively, offensively, rebounding, a lot of different ways. He's such a unique, powerful guard in this league, like the likes we haven't seen. He's unique, and I like the way he's playing on the defensive end particularly.
Well, come with me.
Okay.
Center court.